Thank you for joining us on this Friday evening. Where else would you be? You're going to bang your heads against the wall and watch cable or satellite or network TV? Plus, the great thing about this show is you can watch it whenever you want. Well, folks, we have to come to terms with something here. This election is becoming a disaster. I'm not saying it's going to stay a disaster. There are things that can be done. But right now, it's very, very troubling. If you're a conservative Republican, you'd much rather have Hillary Clinton's numbers than Donald Trump's numbers. And no, it's not the fault of the media. We know about the Praetorian Guard media. They stink. And no, it's not the fault of the relative handful of never-Trump people and so forth. No, it's not. It's the fault of Trump and his campaign right now. And I said this on radio. It's all over the internet. I'm not hiding my feelings on this. One of the things I'm not going to be here is a propagandist and self-censor about things that are going on. You can't ignore the polls. Maybe there are outliers here and there, but every single poll is not an outlier. So I am not going to deny what's going on. What's going on is the American people can't stand either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, but right now they can't stand him more than her. And this is a problem. I want you to take a look at this board here. This is the Larry Sabato group at the University of Virginia. It's a fairly good group, a fairly accurate group in terms of their analytics. This is their latest map. This is their latest map of the Electoral College. Democrats, 347. Republicans, 191. This, if it holds, would be an electoral blowout, an absolute blowout. This means that states that are on the margin go for Hillary Clinton. States like Virginia, states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, and so forth and so on. I've got more statistics to give you in just a moment. But this is trouble. It's not just trouble for the presidential race. It is trouble for the Senate and trouble for the House races. And I was listening to Hillary Clinton this morning, as painful as it was, but somebody has to be waterboarded through this. She and they think Colorado's in the bag. They think Virginia's in the bag. Even Utah is tight. Do you know Hillary Clinton's leading slightly in Georgia right now? Oh, I know it's a snapshot in August, but it's not a good snapshot. It's not a good snapshot at all. Anyway, she was telling this organization of black and Hispanic journalists, she was telling them that she feels they have a good shot at taking the Senate and a good shot of truly winning a number of seats in the House of Representatives. The Democrats, this tells me, think that they have a potential landslide scenario breaking right now. A potential landslide. And as much as I despise them and her, right now, they're probably right. Again, I'm not in the prediction business. I don't know what it'll look like come November, but right now, it's very, very problematic and very, very concerning. Let's take a look at some more of this. Keep that up there on the map, please, so I can refer to it from time to time. Here's what he says, Sabato. On March 31, we released our first general election map of the Electoral College with our self-imposed rule of permitting no cop-out toss-ups. A rule we'll try to hold as we handicap this year's Electoral College map. Our bottom line totals were 347 Electoral College votes for Clinton, 191 for Trump. We've made modest changes since. This was from today. Pennsylvania has morphed from likely Democrat to leans Democrat, while Virginia, after Tim Kaine was added to the Democrat ticket, went the other way, from leans Democrat to likely Democrat. Arizona and Georgia went from likely Republican to lead Republican, because Hillary Clinton has a slight lead right now in Georgia and Arizona. And usually reliable Utah from safe Republican to likely Republican. Now, let me tell you this. If a Republican can't win Utah, it's over. It's either the most Republican state or the second most Republican state. You can't win Utah, it's done. You can't win a state that is so heavily Republican. Then you're gonna get blown out. I'm not saying that's happening yet. I'm not Nostradamus. What I'm saying is, right now, the numbers are extremely troubling. So the number, he says, remain as they did in March, 347 for Clinton, 191 for Trump. Today they say we add another one further alteration. We're moving Colorado from leans Democratic to likely Democratic. This also does not affect the Electoral College total, though it does push a competitive state further toward Clinton. Public and private polling, plus our own survey of key Democrats, Republicans, and independent journalists suggests the GOP is not very competitive in Colorado this year. That includes the Senate race, too. That's too bad, if it turns out that way. There's a great guy running for the United States Senate there. His name is Darrell Glenn. So the big picture, they write, the crystal ball has been an island of stability in a chaotic roiling sea, they write self-servingly. How can that be? Haven't we been paying attention to the considerable shifts back and forth over the last month? Don't we read the polls and other sites' projections, which bounce up and down from day to day like yo-yos? Says, of course we do. We watch them very, very carefully. But our eyes are firmly fixed on November. In essence, he writes, we care about only one thing, the big picture, who's going to get elected president of the United States. So you might ask, what about the wild swings in polling we observe with regularity, more recently each after the convention? Such persuasive research has argued that it is explained by variability in survey response rates of Democrats and so forth. In the end, he says, they've considered that. And in the end, he says, that'll wear its way out. That'll neutralize itself. In our view, it's much more fruitful, he says, to focus on the electoral fundamentals and fixed elements of politics that predetermine most votes, especially partisanship, demographics, strong forces shaping the political landscape. And he says because of the polarization in this race and other races, he figures about 90% of the people who are voting, or will vote, I should say, already in the end know pretty much who they're going to vote for. So you're fighting over a smaller and smaller piece of the population, he points out. Can this change? He says yes. A massive recession, a massive terrorist attack, a stunningly spectacular debate performance by somebody, but he says he doubts it. I assume it's possible, but he doubts it. And they're going to continue to monitor this, as you might suspect. But look at that map. You know they're still duking it out in Missouri. Missouri is a presidential race, a mostly Republican state. It's very, very close in Missouri. We talked about Utah. It's just incredibly worrisome. Incredibly worrisome. Mark, what can we do about this? You know, I get this question all the time. Mark, what can we do about this? Like I'm a magician or something. I voiced my opinion this spring and who I supported for president of the United States. There are other candidates running who would have been spectacular candidates. Hillary Clinton is a horrific candidate with a horrific record, a horrific temperament, a horrific personality, and she should be on the ropes as we speak. But she's not on the ropes. We're on the ropes. And by we, I mean not just in the presidential race. If this turns out to be a landslide of those proportions, we're going to get blown out of the Senate. They may take the House. All this talk about vote Trump so we get the Supreme Court, let me tell you something. Even if we get Trump and we lose the Senate, we're not going to get the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is hanging in the balance in a variety of ways. That's why when you nominate somebody to be president of the United States, you better damn well nominate somebody who has a shot at winning, who can run a professional campaign. Now let's look at some of these battleground polls, if you don't want to believe any of this. And that's the other thing. You got people going around spinning this stuff, pretending that, oh, the libs are behind it, the media's behind it, people aren't saying who they support, people are this, people are that. Are we going to ignore every single poll, every single survey, every single expert? Can somebody give me one expert today that says Trump's leading in battleground states? Or that Trump has a lead in the popular vote? No, there aren't any. And then I get this. Well, Reagan was way behind, you know, this time when he was running in 1980 against Jimmy Carter. But Reagan had a united Republican Party. He wasn't fighting with Senate candidates. And Reagan had a message that he would hammer in over and over and over again. He was a very disciplined candidate. And he was running against an incumbent president with a horrific record. And he would hammer that record, and he would expose that record. And the American people felt that record. It was disastrous when it came to economic policy and foreign policy. Hillary Clinton Say what we will, she hasn't been president of the United States. But if we don't position it and develop a campaign against her and get into all these issues, the Espionage Act violations, what she's done in her foreign policy, the Clinton Foundation, exporting 20% of our uranium production capacity to the Russians and so forth. If the Republican candidate doesn't hammer this home, every single appearance and so forth, then people aren't going to hear it. I can say it till I'm blue in the face on Levin TV and radio, but millions more people are watching the candidates. Let's take a look at some of this. New Hampshire. It used to be New Hampshire was a reliable Republican state. Then all the leftists move in there from Massachusetts, but still, it should be a Republican state even now. A new poll of New Hampshire shows Clinton with a commanding 15-point lead over Donald Trump, finding Granite State Democrats coalescing around their nominee after their convention, while state Republicans remain resistant to Trump. Now, I can hear it now. Wow, these so-called conservatives and so forth, they won't back Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, we can bark that as much as we want. People upset with the way Donald Trump is campaigning. They despise Hillary Clinton, but he says so many outrageous things and so forth, or his positions are so out of sync with many of theirs, they just can't get excited about him. They just can't get motivated about him. And he makes it more and more difficult. It's not the job of the millions and millions of voters out there to coalesce. That's not how people think at home, in our neighborhoods, in our communities. It's up to the nominee to persuade people to get behind them and unite behind them. That's his job. He doesn't get their vote. He has to ask for their vote. Clinton leads Trump among likely New Hampshire voters, according to the poll from WBUR, with third-party candidates Johnson and Stein included. Match 1-to-1, Clinton lead even grows. Her lead grows 17 points, 51 to 34%. They both suffer from challenging unfavorable ratings, though Clinton has made strides in proving her mark. You keep hearing, Hillary Clinton won't do a press conference. Hillary Clinton won't do a press conference. Why should she? She's winning. As of now, I understand that, but she's winning. Why would you hold a press conference? To expose yourself to all the questions that need to be asked her? About her cronyism? About her felonious activity and so forth? Of course she's not going to expose herself. She's sitting back and she's thinking, I'll go to friendly audiences, friendly media, friendly interviews. I'm not going to have a press conference while Donald Trump's doing his thing. I'm winning. That's how she's going to think, and the Democrats are going to think. The Democrat nominee now breaks even in terms of favorability and unfavorability. 45% saying they view Clinton favorably, 45% saying the opposite. That's a 23-point spread. Trump is viewed favorably by 29%, unfavorably by 60%. A poll also found Clinton receives the support of 86% of Democrats and 14% of Republicans, while Trump is backed by only 63% of Republicans and 4% of Democrats. A lot of Republicans apparently don't think he's that Republican. Pennsylvania is key to the Trump strategy. Pennsylvania is probably, from a per capita point of view, the most blue-collar union state in the country. And the people in Pennsylvania are fairly conservative on social issues, on abortion, on same-sex marriage, on the death penalty, also on the Second Amendment. In Pennsylvania, a Democratic-leaning Rust Belt state that Trump has vowed to put into play for the GOP this election, another poll just released yesterday showed Clinton leading by double digits. Clinton leads Trump 49 to 38% among likely Pennsylvania voters, according to the Franklin and Marshall College poll. Her lead swells to 13 points, 47 to 34%, with Johnson and Stein in the race. Clinton's lead in Pennsylvania was buttressed by the National Democrat Convention. The poll found 62% of those who watched were more likely to vote for her. 40% of those who watched the Republican convention said they were more likely to vote for Trump. Pennsylvania is a big problem. Michigan. Another poll came out yesterday. Another battleground state to a point. Clinton is ahead 9 points over Trump, 41 to 32, among likely Michigan voters, according to a Detroit News WDIV TV poll. Clinton's lead is smaller, 6%, without third-party candidates involved. Pollster Richard Zuba told the Detroit News the survey found a shocking Clinton lead in typically reliable Republican areas in West and Southwest Michigan. This is going on all over the country. You know what's happening? These Republican suburbs that are right of center and somewhat squishy, they're dropping Trump. And here's the problem for Trump. There aren't enough blue-collar Democrats who will vote for Trump to make up what he might lose in the Republican suburbs of a lot of these large and mid-sized cities. You've got to lock that base up. You've got to lock up your conservative base. You've got to lock up the Republican suburbs. Then you've got to get Democrats and independents. But he hasn't locked up the base, and he hasn't locked up the suburbs while he's reaching out for Bernie Sanders supporters. Now, I've said this months ago that it was a mistake. Months ago. Let's continue. Trump's struggles in the state's conservative strongholds are attributed in part to Libertarian nominee Gary Johnson. Let's see here. Johnson's showing 10% in the state and 16% in these so-called Republican areas. Now let's go to Florida. A new poll found Clinton leading, though the Democrat nominee's edge there is slimmer. Clinton beats Trump 48 to 42%, a 6% gap. She leads 43 to 39 when third-party candidates are included. Both candidates score net negative favorability ratings, though again, Clinton's numbers are marginally better. Half of likely Florida voters said they have an unfavorable opinion of Clinton. 44% they have an unfavorable opinion of the candidate. Trump is viewed unfavorably by 54% and favorably by 37%. Most likely Florida voters reported having negative views of the 2016 race, too. I think most Americans have negative views of this race, quite frankly. Ah, boy. This isn't the suicide hotline. Just hang in there. There's time to go, but I'm with you. This is, it's very depressing. But I'm not done. Colorado. With polls showing Colorado slipping from the grasp of Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton sought to close and bolt the door on him Wednesday, campaigning in a heavily Hispanic community, while the Trump campaign dispatched Mike Pence to rally the state's bloc of social conservatives. In a sign of growing confidence in what it calls its Sunbelt states, the Clinton campaign pulled its television ads in Colorado last week, shifting resources elsewhere, as polls show Mrs. Clinton running stronger in the diverse Rocky Mountain battleground than Obama did in his 2012 re-election race. Now, we lost Colorado about a decade and a half ago because it was targeted by the left to turn it from a red state to a blue state. They turned it from a red state to a purple state. And it's been a purple state. We've kind of moved it back toward a red state, and now apparently the bottom's cratering, falling out. Let's see here. It also talks about Nevada, where Nevada is becoming increasingly tough, or at least right now, for Trump. And then, of course, we have Georgia. Now, in Georgia, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Hillary Clinton has built a slim lead over Trump in Georgia after one of the worst weeks of the Republicans' campaign. The Libertarian presidential ticket cracked double digits, according to a new Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll. The poll released today shows Clinton at 44%, Trump at 40% in a head-to-head matchup within the poll's margin of error. It's the latest showing a close race between the two candidates in Georgia, a state that has voted for Republican nominees since 1996. In a four-way race, Clinton's lead goes to 41 to 38, shrinking by 1%. That's Georgia. I also read elsewhere that Clinton is leading in Arizona by 3 percentage points. In Arizona? So, this is a problem. I know it's August. I know it's early. But you gotta make sure you're not digging the hole so deeply you can't get out from under. And that's why I spent a lot of yesterday's radio program first hour and more, discussing at great length what I feel needs to be done, if in fact it can be done, with a terribly flawed candidate. They're both terribly flawed candidates. The difference is Hillary Clinton sticks to the script. They work out their strategy. She goes with her strategy. Trump is a loose cannon. A lot of his supporters cheer it. That's because he's not a politician. I don't care what you call him. You can call him a kumquat. It doesn't matter. If you want to win the election, there's certain things you have to do. Number one, have some principled positions that will appeal to people, not pandering to certain little groups in hopes that you can get Bernie Sanders supporters. Number two, you're not leading a movement. There is no movement. You've rejected the conservative movement. What you're trying to do now is get elected president of the United States, and now you need to unite the disparate parts of the Republican Party, which you still have not done, as you go into battle with the Democrats and the media and other assorted leftists. Hasn't been done. Number three, stop trashing other Republicans and stop turning off conservatives. You don't need to talk about Ted Cruz anymore. In fact, if you were a wise man in this regard, you'd call him up and you'd say, Ted, I want your help. I'd even call, if I were running, I wouldn't call him as a radio or TV host, John Kasich. You need Ohio. You have to win Ohio. Ohio is leaning Democrat right now. You say, Governor, I need your machine. I need what you have. Let's make peace. You have got to be able to do those things or you're going to lose. And it'll be your own fault. I asked you yesterday, is Trump the leader of never Trump? I think it's a fair question. Now, more. Mark, you're being awfully harsh and critical. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I have children, and I have a granddaughter. I'm not being harsh and critical at all. To me, politics is nothing more than the go-between, between whether we're going to be a free, prosperous republic or not. I have no obligation to any party and no obligation to any candidate. I have an obligation to this country and my family, and I know most of you feel exactly the same way. So if we have candidates that act like putzes, Democrats or Republicans, I'm supposed to sit here like all these other talk show hosts and so forth and just spin a web and spin a web. Oh, this is good and that's false. No, I'm trying to be as honest as I possibly can with what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. And most of you know I'm right about this. Or that wouldn't be going on right now would it? Now, Congress. This is from today's roll call, a newspaper on Capitol Hill. More voters now prefer that Democrats control Congress than before the two parties' conventions. A new poll shows. So they have their two conventions, and now, at the end of it, more voters want Democrats to control Congress than Republicans. New NBC Wall Street Journal poll conducted from July 31 to August 3rd, Wednesday, showed 47% of voters preferred Democrats controlling Congress compared to 43% of voters who preferred Republican control. In June, the same poll was tied 46 to 46. Democrats had concluded their convention 3 days before the start of the survey. Republicans had theirs the week before. NBC and the Wall Street Journal also polled voters about their presidential preferences during the time and found that Democrats, Hillary Clinton and Kaine, opened a lead coming out of their convention consistent with other polls and so forth. But what's critical in this particular article, now people prefer Democrats running the whole damn thing. Now, I want to talk to you about something. I want to remind you about something. In 2010, there was a Republican Tea Party revolution. 6 years ago. That's all it was. 6 years ago. We took over the House of Representatives. We threw out the Democrat majority. We threw out Nancy Pelosi as Speaker 6 years ago. We almost took the United States Senate 6 years ago. We have taken over more state legislatures than any time in modern history. We have more Republican governors than any time in modern history. Comes 2014, just 2 years ago. We blow the Democrats out of the United States Senate. We remove Harry Reid as the majority leader. Unfortunately, the Republicans installed the pathetic Mitch McConnell. So the Republicans control the House and the Senate as a result of we, constitutional conservatives, Tea Party, Reagan Revolution, traditional conservatives. We control the whole thing. Then comes the Republican presidential primaries. 17 candidates decided to run. Half of them had no business being on any stage. Egomaniacs, they can't control themselves. Lost 2-3 times they've run before. Or they've lost Senate races, or they've lost gubernatorial races, and they're still there. And they're still there, and they run, and what do? Well, what happens when you have 17 people run? Nobody ever gets a majority in any of these state primaries. And nobody really did that much, as far as I recall. So the last candidate standing, up to and including Indiana, got 38% of the Republican vote. That's pathetic. For any of them, it's pathetic because they're so divided. Some of them wouldn't withdraw soon enough. Marco Rubio, who may win his Senate seat, by the way. I hope he does. We're going to need as many senators now as we can get for the purpose of keeping the Supreme Court. But he waits too late. He runs in Florida, and he loses. Kasich should have gotten out a long time ago. He runs in Ohio, and he wins. But there's no ability to coalesce around an opponent. It's too late. Because then you move into states after Wisconsin, like New York, and Rhode Island, and Delaware, and Connecticut, the liberal New England, mid-Atlantic states. And of course, Donald Trump picks up big pluralities in those states, right? Moving into other states. I could go on and on. There'll be books written about this. I guess my bottom line is this. Having taken back the House in 2010, taken back the Senate and holding the House in 2014, some wonderful candidates running in the Republican primary. There we are, poised to take back the presidency after a disastrous Barack Obama, a disastrous economy, a disastrous foreign policy. They are poised to nominate Hillary Clinton, a horrible candidate with a horrible record, deeply disliked by the American people, and what the hell do we do? I'm not saying they're going to win everything. We fight and we fight and we continue to fight. The good, the bad, and the ugly. What I'm trying to say right now is you look at that electoral map. There's nothing good going on anywhere. Anywhere. Nothing good going on anywhere. And now the Congress is in play. The Republican Congress is in play. This is a huge problem. Now, hopefully things will change in the weeks and the months ahead. Hopefully there'll be a good debate or a couple of debates. I'm not rooting for Hillary Clinton. I'm rooting against her. I'm not rooting for the Democrats. I want them to fall on their face and to stay on their face. I want us to take the Supreme Court back. I want all these things to happen. That's why I've written all these books. That's why I helped build this studio. That's why I come in here every day and do this show. That's why I go on the radio every day to do my radio show. Because I am a believer in liberty. I am a believer in a constitutional republic. And I care about my kids and my granddaughter and your families too. That's what that map's all about. Not a cult of personality, not political parties, not this or that. It's about your family and the future of this country.